From Daily Trust News Center, this is the News Hour.
Tonight on News Hour, Chief of Defense Staff says military, other security agencies under pressure to compromise 2023 elections. House of Representatives asks CBN to halt cash withdrawal limits policy as Emefiele says no going back. DSS gives NNPC oil marketers 48 hours to end fuel scarcity nationwide. Away from Nigeria, United Nations says more than 9,000 people flee violence in South Sudan's Upper Nile. Hello and welcome to the News Hour on Trust Television. I am Ayuba Ile. Thank you for joining. And now the details. The Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Rabo, has admitted security agencies and the military constantly come under pressure to compromise elections through various financial inducements. But he is urging Nigerians to anchor their trust in the military as they strive to maintain neutrality in accordance with the directives of President Muhammadu Buhari. He spoke on Thursday while briefing journalists at the State House in Abuja on the strides made by military in the fight against insurgency, terrorism and banditry, stressing that personnel were being trained to follow the codified rules of engagement before, during and after the elections. Kehinde Amodu reports.
Over 300,000 persons have been rescued from the hands of abductors since 2016, while refugees who fled the northeast owing to the insurgency have started to return. These are facts that the Chief of Defense Staff is pushing out, and he should know, since he has been a theater commander in the troubled region at the head of the military's offensive against insurgents and terrorists.
Over 362 bandits have been neutralized, recovered over 156 AK-47 rifles, and a great number of cache of ammunition. And then, of course, we've been able to also strangulate the logistic supply route for the criminals, and of course averted several community clashes, restored socio-economic activities in the troubled areas, and arrested several criminal elements, including those who deal in drugs, as well as arms and ammunition.
The defense chief admits that there still exists internal sabotage within armed forces, but asserts that saboteurs have not succeeded in derailing the military and security agencies from their mission of protecting the sovereignty of the country. It is for this reason he debunks a recent allegation by an international news medium which accused the military of carrying out over 10,000 illegal abortions on female victims of the war in the northeast.
What the allusions they made is news to me. It never occurred. I never saw anything like that, both from the detention center in Giwa project, than to malaria cantonment where I lived, where we have 7 Div Hospital. That was our major hospital for the treatment of our personnel and their families, and especially the wounded. That again, we had unfettered access by all the members of the media.
Another issue generating debate is the role of the military in the 2023 elections. The CDS is firm in his belief that the armed forces will remain non-partisan.
The police, of course, is the lead in this, but we believe that we'll be at the periphery to give assistance as requested by INEC.
The CDS also revisited the alleged Lekki Tollgate massacre in 2020, insisting that the Nigerian military is not interested in killing its own people, but rather more concerned in protecting the citizens. This is why he is urging the media industry in Nigeria to keep the public informed with balanced coverage. From State House, Abuja, Kehinde Amodu, Trust TV News.
The governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, has ruled out the possibility of reversing the ongoing implementation of cashless policy. He spoke on the matter while fielding questions from State House reporters after briefing President Muhammadu Buhari on happenings in the CBN and the Nigerian economy in Daura, Katsina State. Emefiele said a lot of electronic channels had been put in place in 10 years since the cashless policy was launched in 2012, to aid people in conducting banking and financial service transactions in Nigeria. He said the cashless policy was stepped down on a number of occasions to fully prepare for implementation of the policy and deepen payment system infrastructure in Nigeria. On the redesign of the currency notes, the CBN governor said that the banks had started dispensing the new cash, which reached their various offices on Wednesday to their customers.
Well, the Senate of the Federal Republic's National Assembly, their legislative arm of the government, and from time to time, we brief them about what is happening, about our policies, and I'm aware that they have asked for some briefings, and we will brief them. But I think it's important for me to say that the cashless policy started in 2012, okay? But at almost 3 to 4 occasions, we've had to step down the policy because we felt that there is a need for us to prepare ourselves and deepen our payment system infrastructure in Nigeria. Between 2012 and now 2022, almost or about 10 years, we believe that a lot of electronic channels have been put in place that would aid people in making banking, conducting banking and financial services transactions in Nigeria.
Meanwhile, the House of Representatives has summoned the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, to brief members on the recent cash withdrawal policy it introduced to shore up the value of the naira. It also urged him to suspend the implementation of the new policy, slated to commence on January 9, 2023, pending compliance with the provisions of the Act establishing the bank. The summons is sequel to a motion sponsored by Honorable Magaji Dao Aliyu on Thursday at the plenary. Members, while contributing to the debate, expressed fears that the new policy by the CBN, which limits daily cash withdrawal of 20,000 naira daily, will have adverse effects on local small-scale businesses, especially at a time Nigerians are still yet to come to terms with the redesigned policy of the same Central Bank of Nigeria. The Speaker, Femi Gbajabiamila, who presided over the plenary, ruled in favor of the majority after calling for a voice vote.
It's good to have cashless policy, but we seem to be borrowing ideas or policies from other countries where they have already gone far ahead of us. We are comparing ourselves with the British, with the England, the Americans. They are far ahead of us. We will reach there one day. But these are kind of policies that disturb people who voted for us. The issue of this that I read the motion on, it bothers whoever is sitting in this place, because most of them are from rural areas. Everything is being done in naira and cash, and somebody will wake up, it's like he owns this country, and make a policy that will start tomorrow. No consultation. People are forgetting that 80 or 90% of the people are in rural areas. So we must do something to set the situation.
I can't simply understand how we'll just wake up one day and introduce this very draconian approach to businesses, giving Nigerians a maximum of 1 month's notice to adjust their belt. Like Dao argued, sir, more than 70% of our communities in this country do not have banking system.
I'm very passionate about it. It has nothing to do with CBN. Yeah. We should do cashless, and I support it.
Okay.
My mother was affected. A 4-year-old woman was kidnapped, and they requested
I know your mother very well. I'm shocked to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that.
What the central bank is about to do is to steer inflation further into our economy. The issue of security or cash movement across the country, they are not related in any way. Security, you control it with intelligence. Mr. Speaker, elsewhere where these policies have been tried, 500 rupees and 1,000 rupees were demonetized.
Still on reactions on the cashless policy, financial experts and residents in Yola, the Adamawa State capital, have expressed mixed reactions over the Central Bank of Nigeria's new policy on cashless withdrawal limits on individuals and organizations. While some described it as a welcome development, others hold contrary view. They say the move will help curb financial excesses and recklessness among Nigerians. Salis Lawan has more.
Individuals, according to the new policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria, will only be able to withdraw 20,000 naira per day, 100,000 in a week from their bank accounts, while organizations can only access 500,000 naira cash per week. Banks have also been directed to load only 200 naira notes and lower denominations into their automated teller machines ATMs. A financial expert in Yola, while explaining how the new policy may affect the Nigerian economy, especially small-scale business owners, described the policy as a welcome development.
The movement of cash is being restricted. What it means is that the movement of cash will be restricted to some extent. It will minimize to an extent that people will not carry bulk of cash and keep in their houses like they used to do, because nobody will give you an avenue to withdraw money that much and take it home and keep. You understand what I mean now? So even the issue of campaigning with money in this, it will even clean our democracy and make it better when people can no longer have that money to take it to the polling unit to be buying the votes with. And at how much are you going to withdraw from the time of the exchange of the money to the time of election that you will have it to all units? That means it will even clean our democracy. To some extent, people will vote not really because they have been paid, but they will vote their conscience.
Some Yola residents who expressed mixed reactions over the new policy, however, lamented over harsh conditions that average Nigerians may face with.
On the Nigerians, that we just embrace it because it is a good thing for us. As we have looters and what do you call them? When they steal this money and be keeping them at home, in fact, it will not help them. But when it is how it is now, they will not be able to keep money at home, and then when they bring it in the bank, as we know, they will be arrested. Okay? So, in fact, this cashless, as we earlier said, is just a good thing. We just have to embrace it.
I think if the policy will be introduced in a sincere ways of manner, it is very important, because the current situation of this country, insecurity in this country was much. You cannot hold two bunch of 1,000 naira in the street and walk away tomorrow, you sleep in your house. So I think for your safety, cashless is more important.
Stakeholders said the new policy, which was aimed at controlling the amount of cash in circulation, will also help toward tackling corruption and vote buying during the 2023 elections. From Yola, Salis Lawan, Trust TV News.
Now, the immediate past governor of Osun State, Adeboyega Oyetola, has denied allegation by the state government that he looted the government house before leaving. Oyetola's aide, Ismail Omipidan, at a press briefing in Oshogbo, accused the current administration of being behind the looting of the state's government house. Omipidan alleged that loyalists of Governor Adeleke were responsible for the said looting. According to him, the allegation that his principal was responsible for the looting is rather ridiculous and sarcastic, as it is intended to soil the reputation of the former governor. Omipidan said that he was disappointed at the false alarm raised by Adeleke's men, who ordinarily should have been guided by the record of the inventory taken before the formal handover of the items in the governor's lodge and presidential quarters in Government House to the current administration.
By the 27th of November, which was the day of the inauguration, the new governor and his team held a party within the same premises. How can you, after taking over the place on November 26th, you had a party there the next day, you are now turning around after 72 hours to raise alarm that some items were carted away, and when you were talking about those items, you say spoon, you say methylated spirit, you say gas. That is very, very ridiculous. if any item was carted away from that place after we had handed over on November 26, then we should all look in the direction of the governor and his team. When I mean the governor here, I mean the new governor and his team. Because you cannot, after taking over formally, now turn around to now raise alarm that items were carted away. When you saw the inventory, you all agreed on the inventory together.
Mixed reactions have greeted Nuhu Ribado's decision to discontinue the case against Aissatou Dahiru Binani's gubernatorial candidature. While the leadership of the party is pleased with the decision, some respondents in Yola hold contrary view. Salis Lawan tells us more.
It will be recalled that Senator Aissatou Binani won the All Progressive Congress primaries election with 430 votes to defeat her closest rival, Nuhu Ribado, a victory he challenged few days after the primaries. He later suffered loss from both the Federal High Court and the recent one at the Court of Appeal Yola, where he challenged Binani's victory. Nuhu Ribado has, however, resolved to discontinue with court processes against Senator Aissatou Dahiru Binani's gubernatorial ambition, a move the state APC leadership welcomed.
That court case has dragged our party backward. A lot of resources were spent, a lot of time was spent, and it has brought a sort of division among the APC family in Adamawa State. So his withdrawal now has put an end to all those rancors. APC in Adamawa now is one, and we have a sole candidate, as I've said, Her Excellency Senator Aissatou Dahiru Ahmed Binani. But with that decision of Mala Nuhu to continue with the case, honestly, there's joy all over in the APC family in Adamawa State, and we're very grateful to him for doing that.
Meanwhile, some respondents in Yola who are not comfortable with the decision said there is still much to be done.
To me, it is a good thing that the former EFCC boss did, in that he wants to build their party. Had it been that he so distinguished Senator Binani to challenge her, in fact, their party would have suffered, even though I'm not with them. As you see my tag, I'm for PDP, but what he did now, it will change them very well.
Adamawa State leadership of the party said the former EFCC's boss decision will ensure cohesion and unity among its team and supporters and ensure that the party remains one big family. From Yola, Salis Lawan, Trust TV News.
Now, gunmen have attacked the residence of the chairman of the People's Democratic Party Presidential Campaign Council in Rivers State, Senator Lee Maiba. About 5 cars in the residence were vandalized and 3 persons were reportedly injured during the attack on the residence of the former senator who represented Rivers Southeast at the National Assembly. Maiba, an ally of PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar, confirmed the attack. The PDP presidential campaign chairman, who came into Port Harcourt on Thursday morning, said that neighbors observed strange movements around his residence, and later a young man called him to warn him about the planned attack.
So I entered her house at Ojere. I just drove out of here, get into her house. Within 5 minutes, I started having phone call from the neighborhood that they said thugs have pushed the shot at my gate, destroyed the padlock, pushed the first gate, got into the second gate. It was a plate gate. They started jumping all over the place, tried the gates open, tie up the security. My senior brother was somewhere in the gym. They pounced on him. He tried to run. They told him, "Where is your brother? One bullet will solve this Atiku problem now." They mentioned that. They mentioned that they are challenging the governor that one bullet will solve this problem today. They tried to force into the door. The door was security protected. They couldn't enter, but so they've avenged their anger on all the cars here. You see it? It's politically motivated. If it's not politically motivated, they come here and beat up my brother. I told my brother, "What is Atiku? Is he my father? Is our presidential candidate. How are we killing me that one bullet would have solved this problem if they had met me?"
Meanwhile, the police are yet to comment on the incident. The monarch of Oso Ajoa Akoko in Akoko Northwest Local Government Area of Ondo State, Oba Clement Jimo, has regained freedom. The traditional ruler, who was abducted in his palace, was set free by the bandits after he had spent 7 days in their den. Reports say that the monarch was freed on Wednesday evening and he had been taken to the hospital where he was receiving treatment. It is not clear whether a ransom was paid or not before he was released. It was earlier reported that the abductors contacted the family and demanded a sum of 100 million naira, but later reduced it to 10 million naira. The police public relations officer of Ondo State Command, Fumilayo Adunlami, confirmed the development. Troops of the Nigerian Army have killed 9 bandits during a fierce gun battle in some locations in Giwa local government area of Kaduna State. The troops, according to the Kaduna State Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Samuel Aruwan, also cleared some camps and rescued a dozen women and children who were kidnapped and held hostage by the bandits inside the forest. In a statement, the commissioner said that the troops cleared a bandit camp at a river line around Rafin Sarki and neutralized 5 bandits in the vicinity, while many others fled. In another leg of the fierce encounter, the troops and special forces cleared a hideout around Galadima Forest, where 4 bandits were engaged and neutralized. More than a dozen kidnapped women and children abandoned by their captors were rescued by the troops in the course of the operation. The Evangelical Church Winning All, ECWA, has said that no fewer than 807 of its members were kidnapped in various attacks by bandits in Kajuru local government area of Kaduna State in 2022 alone. The church also said that several other members, including its pastors, are among the victims, while 70 other members are still being held hostage by the bandits, with their whereabouts still unknown. Addressing a press conference on Thursday, the chairman of ECWA Kasuwa Magani District Council, Reverend Timothy Megida, disclosed that most of the attacks took place inside the churches when members were observing their weekly or Sunday services. He, however, asked security agencies to be more proactive and increase their presence in rural areas where most of the bandits attack and take place, while also calling on the government to pay attention to the welfare of the thousands of displaced people scattered across the area.
The present Kasuwa Magani DCC comprises 7 local church councils, all from our rural areas. And the security challenges which began around Kasuwa Magani in 2016/2017 had the church as a target, especially in Kajuru and Chikun local governments since 2018. We have been going through a lot of agonies, including not being able to sleep with our 2 eyes closed. For example, this year, bandits stormed ECWA Buddha 2 during Sunday service and took the pastor, Reverend Dauda Isa, alongside some of his elders to captivity in his clerical gown.
The Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps has recovered a cache of ammunition after raiding a kidnapper's hideout in Okuru Ama waterside in Port Harcourt. NSCDC State Commandant Michael Oga disclosed this at the command headquarters in Port Harcourt, Rivers State capital. Parading the suspect, Oga said that the kidnappers' camp was raided following intelligence report of their activities in an uncompleted building in Okuru Ama waterside used by the kidnappers to hold their victims for ransom taking. Given details of the arrest, Oga said some suspects were arrested for illegal dealings in petroleum products, attempted vandalism of the Nigerian Ajib Oil Company pipelines, conspiracy, advance free fraud, illegal possession of ammunition, obtaining by false pretense, and other criminal offenses.
So our men attempt to arrest a kidnapping syndicate that engaged our men at Okurama. They gave our men a shootout for some time, but our men could not arrest them, and they didn't want to kill them. They just wanted to arrest them. So the gang flee and abandon some weapons and ammunition. You can see them on the ground there. We have Tevo magazines and also have magazines for AK. We have 43 ammunitions for Tevo rifle. We also have a pump action. You can see it there. And we also have illegally refined products from boat that is unquantified amount. That one is at the Ogbogoro jetty.
The Department of State Services has given the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited and oil marketers a 48-hour ultimatum to make premium motor spirit known as petrol available for Nigerians. DSS spokesman Peter Afunaya announced the directive while briefing journalists at the headquarters of the Secret Police in Abuja after over a 3-hour closed-door meeting with the stakeholders in petroleum sector. He said failure to comply, the DSS will activate its operations across the country. According to Afunaya, the challenge of fuel scarcity has assumed a dimension that is detrimental to the security of the nation. He said during the meeting, the NNPC agreed that there is enough product that will serve Nigerians during and after the Yuletide. The leadership of the Ibadan Depot of the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria has warned the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation and indeed the federal government to revert to its former mode of payment for the procurement of petroleum products or risk a total shutdown of fuel dispensing stations in its domain from Monday, December 12. IPMAN chairman for Ibadan Depot, Bukola Mutiu, issued this warning in Ibadan in the aftermath of its quarterly meeting, where they lamented what they termed outrageous prices being incurred to purchase fuel from independent depot owners. Bukola Mutiu, who also kicked against the constant harassment and maltreatment of its members in the line of duty, wants government to take urgent steps or risk a total shutdown, which will ultimately affect the well-being of ordinary Nigerians who will be at the losing end of the crisis.
At the meeting today that we had this morning, we concluded on certain issues. We are tired of federal government through NNPC, PPMC, that they deny us our rights. As a registered marketer under PPMC, NNPC, Ibadan Depot, we have been denied of paying directly to NNPC Post to get our supply on petroleum products, especially petrol, to our various stations. Over 6 months now, we have been denied of paying directly to RRR, the customer experience portal of NNPC. That led us to go to private depot to be buying at these outrageous prices. As of today, on the 8th of December 2020, the prevailing price at all the private depot in Lagos ranging from 215 naira per liter to 223 naira per liter without trucks and other expenses.
You're watching the News Hour on Trust Television. Coming up shortly, we'll take a look at reasons why prices of plank and building materials will remain high. Details of this and more after the break. Now, as part of efforts to support Africa's goal of strengthening...
Now, looking at the activity chart, as you can see right here, a total volume of 130...
Created a Boko Haram crisis that at that time was restricted to Yobe.
How secured are they? You can see security men with blood.
This is the road leading up to the...
Or really, if you look at England's squad,
You are looking at EPL, you are looking at their names. You are not looking at...
Welcome back from that break. This is the News Hour on Trust Television. Now here's a look at the top stories again. Chief of Defense Staff says military, other security agencies under pressure to compromise 2023 elections. Plus, House of Representatives asks CBN to halt cash withdrawal limits policy as Emefiele says no going back. In other news, the executive, the judiciary and legislature are the three branches of government in a democratic society. These three works together to ensure the smooth running of government with a view to delivering democratic dividends to the governed. In Makurdi, a cross-section of residents share their assessment of the legislature vis-a-vis delivering on their mandate. Jimmy Azande reports.
The National Assembly and the State Houses of Assembly have come under fire from some of the residents. For these respondents, that arm of government has failed in its constitutional oversight function.
Their rules are specified in the Constitution. You are to do this and do this and do this and do this. Have they been doing it? They haven't. They are more interested in allocating money to themselves and doing constituency projects that they feel they will benefit. And even those constituency projects are just on paper. You hear them on the radio, on TV. You go to where they say they are doing, you will not see anything. So we don't have, it's like they have made the legislative arm of government to be irrelevant now.
National Assembly, they claim that they have a cordial relationship with the executive. So that cordial relationship it means that they have not been carrying out their functions. They have not been carrying out their functions. It is not a matter of war, but a functional National Assembly should stand out and sometimes, try to take objection to certain decisions of the executive. We have never seen that. It's not that we are encouraging a kind of chaos, but we have never seen the National Assembly standing to object certain decisions that are not of any fundamental benefit to the citizens.
Others have scored the legislature, especially at the National Assembly, high on policy formulation, though they argue that their best is not enough.
These are issues of good governance, and politics is what it is, but basically, from my own assessment, if you look at the kind of laws and the kind of regulations that they put forward, I think they've had quite a number of successes in those laws and formulation of policies for guidance in Nigeria, for governance in Nigeria. But there may be a little bit of hikes there, here and there. But when it comes to implementation, that's where the failure begins. But if we look at some of the laws that these assembly members or some of the legislative houses have put in place, I think they are worth the while.
The Benue people are confident that if the legislative branch is effective, Nigeria will witness appreciable progress.
Now, lack of development at the third tier of government has been attributed partly to undue influence by the state governors since the return to democracy in 1999. This influence, many believe, has starved the local administration of funds meant for development at that level, as successful governments have been accused of looting local resources, but many are hopeful the situation will change. The report.
The question of local government autonomy has dominated discussions in many fora as the burning issue of local underdevelopment continues to stare the nation in the face. Recently, a blame game ensued between the presidency and the state executives as the presidency accused governors of mismanagement of funds meant for local governments.
I could hardly hear any activities taking place there.
But I think the idea of what led to the establishment of a local government system in time past was just to bring the local government closer to the people, where they could feel the impact of its activities directly. But now the whole thing is being run like a kind of a gang system, where a group of people at the top, they hijack the system, and the dictator plan to name their lackeys.
The local government, which is closer to the people, has become a shadow of itself, as it can barely fund itself, let alone development in communities.
The authority of government is nearer to the people, and that's where we house a bulk of our population. And so during 1990 or 1990 towards 1992, we discovered that there was sharp development that was taking place because the local governments were autonomous. They could access their funds directly, and they were able to execute projects that were people-oriented without any shortcut from any state government. But since the coming on board of local government and state joint account, it became difficult for true development to take place in the rural areas.
Debates on whether or not the federal government has a right to grant autonomy to local administrations in the respective states continue, with many state legislative branches agreeing to give autonomy to the third tier of government.
I don't think the federal government has the powers to grant local government autonomy. It is a legislative matter. The local, I think the executive council, the federal executive council approached the National Assembly for local government autonomy, which the National Assembly have unanimously passed in favor of local government autonomy. But this has to be taken to various houses of assembly for concurrence. So if at the end of the day the houses of assembly are able to vote in favor of that proposal, then the local government autonomy will be granted. I think it will be better off for it.
It is left to be seen what happens to the local government system as Nigeria goes to the polls in 2023 to elect new set of leaders.
Upgrades in transportation infrastructure have made it incumbent on key decision makers, experts and operators to leverage on the potentials of technology in the sector. Already, with the reopening of the Abuja-Kaduna rail route, with key digital innovations have ushered in to make rail travel safer. Minister of Transportation Muazu Sambo outlined some of the innovations on Thursday in Abuja. Dashin Hussaina reports.
The federal government has identified innovations and digital economy as important tools in the nation's drive for an efficient transportation system in the country. Already, giant strides have been made in fighting piracy in the Gulf of Guinea, and the Minister of Transportation, Muazu Sambo, hopes this will be replicated across the sector. But he believes there is need for greater synergy between federal government and the states if improvement in the sector is to be achieved.
In my speech, I called for synergy, serious synergy between the federal government and the states. Whatever the federal government does will be meaningless unless states are on board. The majority of our people live in the states, and so we expect state governments to innovate, come on board with the broad principles that we have laid out, and ours is just to provide an enabling environment for states to build upon. We live in an era where if you don't deploy technology, you don't use technology, you're going to be left behind. It's as simple as that. And that is why, in the wisdom of this administration, the Ministry of Communications was rebranded Communications and Digital Economy in order to drive the economy digitally, as well as the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation. The achievement we recorded in the Gulf of Guinea, fighting piracy in our maritime domain, that we have been able to achieve through massive deployment of both infrastructure, technology and human assets.
There have been cases made for compensation to victims of the Abuja-Kaduna train attack. But is government considering some measures to make amends to the released kidnapped victims of the attack?
You talk about compensation. Now, can I ask you also, on what basis? Now, okay, let's draw an analogy. I bought a bus from Abuja to Port Harcourt, a commercial bus, and then we end up, God forbid, being kidnapped and subsequently released. Do we ask the bus owner to compensate us? Your answer is my answer.
Stakeholders in the transportation sector have consistently called on the federal government to invest more on road transport and transit insurance, as the majority of the populace rely on this means of transportation. Darshan Hussaina Usman, Trust TV News, Abuja.
The National Serious Research Institute, Badegi in Niger, says it has produced 2 flood-resistant rice varieties to mitigate the impact of flood on the production of the commodity. The executive director of the institute, Aliu Umaru, told journalists in Bida on Thursday that the new varieties included Faro 67 and Faro 68. Umaru said that the varieties could withstand submergence between 2 to 3 weeks as compared to the previous varieties that normally perished after 2 to 3 days of submergence. It urged farmers in the country to adopt appropriate varieties in flood-prone areas. Umaru recalled that the 2022 floods were devastating across the country, resulting in colossal losses to the farmers, including the institute. The World Health Organization says a new malaria vaccine, RTS-S, will be distributed from 2023 to protect millions of children in countries where the disease is most prevalent. Adisalan Noor of the WHO Malaria Program on Thursday said that more than 20 countries plan to use RTS-S, adding that some will start using it by the end of 2023. He said some government will get access to the jab with the help of the International Vaccination Alliance. According to estimates by WHO, some 619,000 people have died of malaria worldwide in 2021, slightly less than 625,000 in 2022. According to WHO, in its published annual malaria report, cases of the disease have reached 247 million, but the rate of increase has slowed, adding that about 95% of the illnesses and deaths were registered in Africa. As part of efforts to promote a gender-inclusive and gender-responsive structure, as provided by the National Gender Policy, the Ministry of Interior and Nigeria Police Force seek more support to address the plight of women. This is in line with drumming support for the global campaign of 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Here's the report.
Acceptability and adoption of the national gender policy across all key ministries, departments and agencies in Nigeria is necessary in eradicating gender-based violence, especially the security agencies, who are the first point of call for victims and survivors. But the Ministry of Women Affairs wants the justice system to take its course, even as 36 states domesticated the Violence Against Persons Act, with only 34 states domesticating the Child Rights Acts.
In Nigeria, gender inequality is widespread due to patriarchy, imbalance in socioeconomic opportunities, cultural and religious factors, and also inadequate enabling legal and policy frameworks. 2018 reports indicates that 1 in 3 of all Nigerian women and girls aged 15 to 49 has been a victim of one form of gender-based violence. And 1 in every 5 have experienced physical violence in Nigeria.
Minister of Interior Rauf Aregbesola says security personnel at the international border posts are on the lookout to arrest human traffickers, as his ministry is working towards creation of special career path for women across different parastatals of the ministry.
We want to create special line, special career path for women in all our services. At each time they are considering headship of the agencies, there must be a woman to be considered.
Similarly, the Inspector General of Police says the fight against gender-based violence birthed the creation of gender desks across force headquarters level, states level, and the DPO levels, noting that stringent punishment of perpetrators will serve as deterrence.
One, the issue of stigmatization. Parents don't like reporting cases, or even when they report, they like to withdraw and settle matters. Women don't like to come and give evidence against their husbands or boyfriends or relations. Some of the questions you will be asked by the interrogators are so difficult for you to answer because it's so a lot of issues. When you move to the court, it's another place where you will be frustrated because of a lot of advantages that can be taken. Where is the doctor's report? Where is that one? He who asserts must prove, and a lot of issues. And that is why we can charge 10 cases to court today. For the next 2 years, you will not get one conviction.
Gender-based violence is a violation of fundamental rights and constitutes gender discrimination with far-reaching effects on physical and emotional well-being. Hence, there is need for strategies by individuals and organizations around the world to call for the prevention and elimination of the act. Aisha Salihu, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Civil servants in Jos, the capital of Plateau State, have expressed joy over the 14-day paternity leave approved by the federal government. And the civil servants say that though the approved 2-week period is very short, it was nevertheless a welcome development. Adu Musa reports.
The civil servants say the new policy for the men was a welcome idea, as household activities often increase when a family welcomes a new baby, adding that the help of a father is critical at that point.
I consider federal government concerning that as very considerate, because as a father, particularly during the birth, one needs to take care of his wife and also that of his children. The woman, particularly in that time, needs the attention of her husband more to render some certain assistance to her.
The paternity leave of men as a civil servant, I'm highly delighted. I'm happy with this policy. It's a policy that given a sense of belonging to the men.
For the women, the policy is heartwarming as it has only positive sides.
It's a good idea because at times when a woman is put to bed, she needs somebody by her side in order to prepare for the naming ceremony and other runnings like that. So it's a good thing. Since it's a new policy, they only approve 2 weeks, right? So it's a new policy which we believe with time, maybe they'll upgrade it for the men to enjoy it.
The beneficiaries of the policy, however, call on the federal government to extend it to the private sector to enable those who work in that sector to benefit.
To appreciate the efforts of federal government for the policy being implemented that as a public servant, we are supposed, when your wife gives birth, we are supposed to be given a 14 days maternity leave. That's a very good development. We appreciate federal government for this effort they made.
Both men and women believe that the new 14-day paternity leave would help the women at home, especially if the delivery comes with complications that will require men's attention. Ado Musa, Trust TV News, Jos.
Leaders of the Nigerian Plank Sellers and Building Materials Market Association have sounded the alarm over the rising cost of transportation, frequent harassment and extortion of their members by suspected touts along major highways. The group, during a consultative meeting in Ibadan, called on the federal government to address the situation, which, according to them, contributed to the hike in prices of building materials. The report.
The wood and metal is a crucial component of the building and construction section of the Nigerian economy.
Members of the Plank and Building Material Association have warned of a rise in the cost of materials due to the illegal activities of toll collectors on the major highways.
We plank sellers, if the forestry people, if they want to monitor their wood, they should go to sawmill where they are slicing wood to monitor their activity of slicing of the wood. We have been facing a lot of challenges for so many years back. We don't have the reason why the people that are selling the plank and we are moving from the road, we cannot have a free movement from the third boys. I can call them the third boys because I'm not seeing the reason why somebody will be moving from a federal road. Somebody will be carrying cutlass, be carrying gun, will be carrying bottle, and stopping somebody on the road, asking you have to pay 50,000, you have to pay 40,000, asking them for what reason. They will start beating all our people down. This thing is supposed to be stopped.
We have been having a lot of problems on the road when we are coming to bring our goods to our destination. So many places we have been paying money. Even the tout, they are stopping us. That's why the federal government enforcement agency on the road.
Problem on the road. First, those people, they call them consultants from government. They stop money from us, soldiers, police. They stop our people convey wood from any state.
When we are carrying our plant from one place to another, we always have a difficulties on the road. But now that is why we create this association to let everything move forward. Because our people who carry load from another state, by going to another place, they can collect less than 100,000 from their hand. And they don't want that one this time around.
We are appealing to government to help us inform everybody that we are doing a legitimate business. So we should not be having a problem on the road again.
Members of the Plank and Building Material Association cautioned the government against ignoring their demands, as doing so could lead to the cost of building becoming prohibitive.
Time now for us to take a look at business updates as presented by Chiamaka Nwafo.
The Nigerian Communications Commission (NCC) has declared Airtel Networks Limited as the sole bidder for the 3.5 GHz spectrum auction of the 5G network. In a statement signed by Ruben Moka, Director, Public Affairs Department of the Commission, only two companies, Airtel Networks Limited and Standard Network and Connections Limited, expressed interest in the auction of the 3.5 GHz spectrum band. It, however, stated that only Airtel paid the intention to bid deposit IBD as stipulated in the Information Memorandum IM. The statement also disclosed that there shall be no further bidding as the Commission proceeds to the assignment stage in line with the published Information Memorandum guiding the licensing process. The International Air Transport Association (IATA) has announced that African carriers are expected to post a loss of $638 million in 2022, narrowing to a loss of $213 million in 2023. IATA said in 2022, airline net losses are expected to be $6.9 billion, which is significantly better than losses of $4.20 billion and $137.7 billion that were realized in 2021 and 2020, respectively. It also projected that passenger demand growth of 27.4% is expected to outpace capacity growth of 21.9%. The association also said it projects a return to profitability for the global airline industry in 2023, identifying passenger and cargo growth as the main drivers of the expected profitability. The global body also said that cargo markets are expected to come under increased pressure in 2023. And finally, in stocks, the market on Thursday closed on a bearish note occasioned by profit taken in MTN Nigeria and 9 other stocks. The all-share index declined by 0.13% to close at 48,365.14 points. Market capitalization closed at 26.343 trillion naira, down by 0.13%, shedding 34 billion naira. The market breadth closed positive as 15 equities emerged as gainers against 10 equities that declined in their share prices. An aggregate of 148 million units of shares was traded in 3,391 deals valued at 2.98 billion naira. And that's it on Business News. I am Chiamaka Nwafor. Thanks for watching.
Now, away from Nigeria, the United Nations say more than 9,000 people have fled the most recent violence in South Sudan's Upper Nile state, adding that some were forced to hide in swamps and bushes during the attacks. The bloodshed in the region has killed an unknown number of people, while rape, murder and kidnapping of civilians have been reported as the conflict intensifies. At least 20,000 people have fled the violence since it first erupted in August, including 3,000 over the border into neighboring Sudan. The fighting has spread to bordering states of Jonglei and Unity, with grave fears for civilians trapped in the town of Kodok. Let's now take a look at sports updates presented by Adeni Ajishafe.
Team Kano beat Delta 27-24 to win gold in the men's handball final at the ongoing 2022 National Sports Festival in Delta State, while Team Oyo beat Team Lagos 42-41 to clinch gold in the women's handball category. In basketball, Team Rivers men won gold after defeating Team Lagos men basketball 70-69 in a tough game of the day, as Team Bayelsa women basketball bagged gold after beating Team Delta 43-35 in women basketball category. Meanwhile, it was a battle of wit and skills in the men's round of 16 badminton game between Team Edo Saddam Rufai and Team Katsina Khalid Shamsuddin at the ongoing National Sports Festival in Asaba. The two players gave the spectators the badminton experience they wanted to see as the two slugged it out at the indoor sports hall. In the first set, Edo State Saddam Rufai showed lots of class as he won convincingly despite the fight put up by Khalid Shamsuddin of Katsina State, with the game running 21-7 with much dominance from Rufai. Shamsuddin fought hard in the second set to close the gap against the leading player. We saw a hard-fighting Saddam Rufai still triumph 21-19 at the end. Elsewhere in Asaba, Federal Capital Territory Director of Sport, Lucas Estefanos, says the delay in releasing the medals table at the 2022 National Sports Festival in Asaba is due to changes adopted by the main organizing committee of the sporting event. Estefanos also expressed joy that the team FCT is working hard to beat the record set for medals.
I told my principals that nothing short of 12 gold medals that were being expected to be delivered to the FCT sport family.
And that's all for the News Hour tonight. You can watch more via all our social media platforms and also watch us live on YouTube. I am Ayuba Ilya. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.